Music. The morning sun comes up over Lansing, Michigan, making long shadows on the streets where young Steven Seagal once walked, dreaming about learning martial arts and becoming a Hollywood star. Not many people could have guessed that this serious, quiet boy would become one of action movies' most famous actors, and then one of America's most shocking traitors. But today, at age 72, the man who made his career playing good guys who never give up and fight against bad people has been sentenced to stay in prison for life for spying against the United States. This brings a shocking end to what lawyers say was one of the longest and most harmful spy operations in American history. Steven Frederick Seagal was born in Lansing in 1952. His early life didn't show any signs of the amazing and terrible path that was coming. His dad was a medical worker, and his mom was a math teacher. Young Steven became really interested early on in Asian culture and martial arts. This interest became something he couldn't stop thinking about. It led him to Japan when he was a teenager, where he spent all his time learning Aikido. I found something in Japan that I couldn't find in America, Seagal would often say in interviews. A way to be disciplined, a way of thinking, a way of moving through the world that made sense to me. What police now think, though, is that Seagal found something else during those important years in Japan, his first meeting with Russian spy workers who saw in the young American someone who could be a long-term helper. Court papers to show that Seagal's recruitment probably happened between 1973 and 1975, during a time when Soviet spies were actively trying to find sleeper agents who could become influential. The perfect spy isn't the one who can steal a paper today, explained former CIA counter-spy officer Marcus Weather. It's the one who can spend many years building up a position where they have influence and access. Seagal was a perfect example of patient spy work. Going back to America in the late 1970s, Seagal made himself known as a respected Aikido teacher in Los Angeles. He opened a martial arts school that brought in famous clients. This way into Hollywood circles eventually led to his big break in the movie business with 1988's Above the Law, where he played a former CIA worker fighting corruption, something that lawyers would later point out as ironic in their sentencing papers. Throughout the late 1980s and 1990s, Seagal built a successful career as an action star with movies like Hard to Kill, Marked for Death, and Under Siege. His movie character, the calm, never giving up fighter battling against corrupt systems, connected with audiences around the world and made him one of the genre's most money-making stars. Behind this rising Hollywood career, however, lawyers have now shown a pattern of activities that match spy gathering and influence operations. Seagal's movie company, which demanded unusual amounts of access to military bases for research. His building of relationships with police agencies across the country, and his seemingly strange meetings with foreign officials now appear as parts of a smart spy operation. He wasn't just playing a government worker in movies, stated FBI Director Eleanor Simmons at a news conference after the verdict. Kay was using his celebrity status to get access to sensitive places, influential people, and information that would have been denied to almost anyone else by the early 2000s. As Seagal's Hollywood star began to fade, his connections to Russia became more and more public. He developed a close relationship with Russian President Vladimir Putin, got Russian citizenship in 2016, and was made Russia's special representative to the United States in 2018. What looked to many like the weird choices of an aging action star was, according to lawyers, the end result of a decades-long spy operation moving into its final, most productive phase. Seagal's embrace of Russia wasn't a late career change, explained Assistant U.S. Attorney James Donovan, who led the prosecution. It was the revealing of his true loyalty after decades of pretending. The investigation that would finally lead to Seagal's arrest began not with his Russian connections, but with money problems discovered during a routine IRS check-in 2019, investigators found a complex network of fake companies and offshore accounts that had processed millions of dollars in payments from groups linked to Russian spy services. These money trails led to the discovery of secret communications, dead drops, and other spy techniques consistent with espionage activities. When federal agents searched Seagal's ranch in New Mexico in 2022, they discovered what lawyers would later describe as a treasure chest of spy materials, special communications, equipment, documents detailing the weak points of important infrastructure, and, most damaging of all, a complete archive of spy reports Seagal had put together and sent to his Russian handlers over decades. The trial, which began in January 2024, revealed the amazing scope of Seagal's activities. Lawyers presented evidence that he had used his movie company as cover to photograph sensitive military installations, used his relationships with police to gather information on federal agents, and used his celebrity status to influence public opinion on issues important to Russian foreign policy. Perhaps most disturbing were the testimonies from former friends who described Seagal's careful efforts to build relationships with government officials, military contractors, and technology executives, relationships that gave him access to information about weapon systems, cybersecurity rules, and defense planning. He would casually mention during a dinner party that he was working on a movie about submarine warfare and needed technical details to make it realistic, testified one former Pentagon consultant. Before you knew it, you were explaining classified capabilities to him, thinking you were just helping with the movie. Throughout the court case, Seagal said he was innocent, with his defense team trying to show the government's case as a politically motivated attack on an American who had simply developed cultural and business interests in Russia. This strategy fell apart when lawyers introduced recordings of Seagal speaking in perfect Russian with his handlers, a language he had publicly claimed to barely understand, discussing spy goals and American weak points. The jury thought about it for just 7 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all counts of espionage, conspiracy, acting as an unregistered foreign agent, and money laundering. At the sentencing hearing, Judge Caroline Mendez delivered a harsh assessment before announcing the life sentence. "Mr. Seagal, you played heroes on screen while betraying your country in real life," she stated. "You used the freedoms and opportunities America gave you to hurt the very system that allowed you to succeed. The damage you have done to national security and to the trust Americans place in their institutions cannot be overstated." The sentencing has sent shockwaves through Hollywood and Washington alike. Former colleagues have expressed feelings of betrayal and disbelief as they try to understand the man they worked with and the double life revealed in court. "I still can't process it," said former Under Siege director Andrew Davis. "We made films about fighting for America, about honor and loyalty, while he was. I just can't wrap my head around it." For spy professionals, the case represents both a significant counter-spy success and a serious reminder of the long-term nature of foreign spy operations. "This wasn't a quick smash-and-grab operation," noted former NSA Director Admiral James Hollister. Was patient, careful spy work, spanning nearly 5 decades. Seagal's case will be studied in counter-spy training for generations, as Steven Seagal begins his life sentence at the Administrative Maximum Facility in Florence, Colorado, the highest security federal prison in the United States. The full impact of his betrayal is still being figured out. Intelligence agencies continue to check which operations may have been hurt, which foreign policy decisions may have been influenced, and what weak points may have been exposed during his decades of espionage. For fans worldwide, this case creates a painful contradiction. The films that once entertained millions now appear in a scary new light. The stories of an American hero fighting corruption were created by a man who had promised loyalty to a foreign power. The martial arts way of thinking about honor and doing right that Seagal talked about throughout his career stands in complete contrast to the line that defined his true life's work. The greatest performance Steven Seagal ever gave wasn't in any of his films, concluded Prosecutor Donovan in his closing statement. It was the decades-long act of a patriotic American while he systematically betrayed his country, as one former fan stated outside the courthouse after sentencing. He taught a generation of us about honor through his films and martial arts. Now, he's taught us about betrayal through his actions. I don't know which lesson will last longer.